What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to be spicing it up a little bit because Wednesday I said that we were going to be doing a video about the top Browns trade targets that I feel like the Browns could go after, but a little bit of a different rumor mill has been going on with the Browns starting yesterday because Charles Robinson, I believe of Yahoo, was on a radio station in Nashville, of all places, sports talk radio show, basically saying that the Philadelphia Eagles were very interested in trying to acquire Myles Garrett and that the overall compensation that they would be willing to part with for getting Myles Garrett would be 3 first round picks. And now a lot of people were seeing that, seeing the rumor about Myles getting traded as, just absolute nonsense. A lot of people, rightfully so, viewed that as nonsense. Even Browns themselves, they said, came out with Adam Schefter basically saying that you have more of a shot of winning the lottery than getting Myles Garrett in a trade. And I kind of felt like this wasn't a real story at the time because I mean, like, who in their right mind would trade Myles Garrett? How would the Browns even decide to trade Myles Garrett at a time like this? But then there have been other reports coming out and other tweets from Browns media in Cleveland, kind of stoking not even flames, but hinting that there could be some smoke coming on with the Myles Garrett situation. And I kind of wanted to talk about this because I kind of wanted to go over my thoughts and give you guys my opinions about it because I feel like there hasn't been a real discussion, or at least there hasn't been this much of an in-depth discussion as to what trading Myles Garrett would do to this football team and really to the city, and what a potential compensation haul you could get for trading a player like Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football right now. He's arguably the best defensive player ever in NFL history. And, you would have to get a damn good haul for a Myles Garrett. Now, the issue with trading Myles Garrett is twofold. One is getting enough compensation to warrant trading away your best player at any position, really the best player your franchise has ever had. And secondly, how would you navigate the cap when you have to owe, potentially, if you trade Myles Garrett, $60 million on the cap that would be attributed to a dead cap hit if you trade Myles Garrett? And that is where you're kind of seeing where trading Myles Garrett would not be anywhere in the cards for the Cleveland Browns. But I saw two little tweets coming from Browns media where Daryl Ryder of 92.3 basically said that, you know, Andrew Berry does not work within rumors, right? A lot of his trades come out of left field. Like Amari Cooper. Remember the Amari Cooper trade? Nobody thought that Amari Cooper would be, willingly available to anybody, let alone for a 5th round pick. I mean, everybody thought that Amari Cooper was a lot better, or at least worth more than a 5th round pick, but somehow, some way, the Browns were able to get Amari Cooper, or at least someone like Amari Cooper's talent, for a 5th round pick, and Amari Cooper had 2 good years here while he was with the Cleveland Browns. And, a lot of different plays. I mean, uh, Greg Newsome just this year. Greg Newsome, a lot of people were expecting Greg Newsome to be traded maybe in the offseason, or not even in the offseason, but maybe you just let him go in free agency. You don't re-sign him. You just re-sign Martin Emerson, and then somehow you find a way to trade Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell, who has 4 years of control after signing an extension with Jacksonville. And essentially Joe Flacco this year as well too, trading him to the Cincinnati Bengals, a division rival, when everyone thought that you would probably keep Joe Flacco on as a backup because you needed a veteran presence in the room. You keep telling us that Shador Sanders is not ready enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not ready to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. And everyone thought that Joe Flacco would serve the rest of this season as the backup while you train Shador and you make Dylan Gabriel your starter and keep giving him game refs. When Daryl Ryder tweeted that out today, that kind of piqued my interest because I feel like, why would Daryl Ryder say that? And I'm also thinking, if that is the case, and there is something maybe to the report of Myles Garrett maybe being available in trade talks, that is something to keep an eye on and to really pay attention to, because if you are the Browns, and I'll get to the Philadelphia Eagles component in this story in just a second, I promise here. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you have to willingly think about what trading a player like Myles Garrett does, not just to your football team, but to your fan base, because the fan base is already, the fan base is already in a mutinous behavior right now. We're in a mutinous mindset about the Cleveland Browns right now. And, it starts with, trading all those assets for Deshaun Watson, spending the 3 first-round picks and $230 million fully guaranteed on Deshaun Watson, and with what type of baggage that he brought to the Cleveland Browns, just in a PR sense. Then you move on from a Baker Mayfield, who had a big following in Cleveland. Then you have a lot of losing come in. Then he gets saved in 2023 with Joe Flacco and the Flacco fever run. And then now the last 2 years, you've gone 5-20 in the last, or 5-25 in your last 30 games. There's not a lot of goodwill towards the Cleveland Browns at the moment. And you're going to have to trade Myles Garrett, and you're going to trade Myles Garrett to just add on top to basically sort of put the final nail in the coffin in terms of phantom happiness, if there's even any happiness around the Cleveland Browns. But then you also have to look on the flip side as well with the compensation, because if the Browns are able to get 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, you would have 7 first-round picks in the next 3 years, right? You'd have 3 this year and then 4 the next 2 years after this year. And if you're the Cleveland Browns and you're willing to pay the price, essentially, of giving up a player of Myles Garrett's caliber and fandom in Cleveland to get 7, essentially 7 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, I'm going to take the unpopular opinion and say I would not be opposed to thinking, at least being open to the idea of taking a deal like that. Now, with the Eagles, this is where the Eagles component comes in. I would not make that trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, because essentially those first round picks, after trading a player like Myles Garrett, like Myles Garrett's caliber, to an already Super Bowl champion team, to an already Super Bowl caliber team, I would not do any deal like that with a team like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Buffalo Bills or any other team like that that would need Myles Garrett's caliber. I mean, let's face it, every team in the NFL would love to have a player like Myles Garrett's caliber, but with the Philadelphia Eagles, I would not do that trade, just because you would not get any pick probably lower than 28 from a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if you would be able to talk to other NFC teams that are maybe on the rise, then maybe I would be able to see a trade scenario come up where you could see if you could get the same amount of compensation that the Eagles would give up in order to trade Myles Garrett. Now, again, I say this is highly unlikely, very unlikely. This is probably 5% max I mean, on a sunny day with but perfect conditions, this is 5%, right? Maybe that's even a little bit too high. But if you are looking at a trade for Myles Garrett, and if this rumor report's coming out with Daryl Ryder basically saying that, Andrew Berry can make trades happen out of nowhere where you don't think it could happen, and it can happen. And even Andy Baskin on the radio show today basically saying there's some smoke to these rumors in that Charles Robinson came out with yesterday. That basically there's something there. There is something going on, and maybe it doesn't come to fruition that Myles gets traded, but there is something there that's going on that they're hinting at, right? If you are able to get a deal done with a team like Chicago or Dallas, or maybe you go to Carolina because Carolina is having a pretty good season, and maybe they get a guy like Myles Garrett who can help on the defensive side of the football, and then maybe they take the next step. If you're able to, or even Atlanta, if you can make a trade with those guys. I mean, there's a lot of different teams in the NFC that I feel like you can make a trade with to get, if you can get that draft compensation. If you want to get 7 first-round picks, and I know a lot of people immediately flush that idea, right? Because they're just saying, 3 first-round picks, especially with the Eagles. I understand that. I would not agree to a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles for 3 first-round picks. But if you are going to trade him to a team like maybe Chicago or Carolina or Dallas, a team that can basically improve themselves a little bit, but you could still get maybe picks, in the mid first round, maybe a little bit in the early 20s. I don't think that's necessarily a bad strategy, because then if you have 7 first round picks for the next 3 years, right, you can bundle those picks up to get a very damn good player. And I think that's a lot of people are not taking that into account in terms of the draft capital that you would be able to get for a player of Myles Garrett's caliber, right? But also on the flip side, and which is why I don't think it's going to happen, but I kind of wanted to talk about it, the dead cap hit would just be insane for the Cleveland Browns to take on, right? Unless there is a team that would be willing to take on some of the cap hit for Myles, which I don't think would happen. I don't think they would help out the Browns at all unless they have just an ungodly amount of cap space. But if the Browns are able to get a team able to do that, then yes, obviously I would bump that up from a 5% to maybe a 20%, at least in my opinion. And I know it's unpopular. I know you guys are going to be like, you're crazy, right? You're crazy for even suggesting that the Browns should trade Myles Garrett. But to me, if you're able to get 7 first-round picks in the next 3 years, and you can even bundle those picks up however way you want to spin it to get a player not even on Myles' caliber, but if you want to get a quarterback, if you want to get a wide receiver, if you want to get an edge rusher, if you want to get whatever player you want, almost any player that you want, I don't think having those picks is a bad thing. It just depends on if you can get any other team other than the Philadelphia Eagles or the Buffalo Bills or any other, or Kansas City Chiefs, any of those other teams outside of those categories, outside of those Super Bowl contenders, an up-and-coming team. If you can get a trade facilitated with any of those franchises, then I would not be as opposed right now to doing that deal with those teams, okay? But that's just my opinion. And again, I'm going to emphasize it again. It is so unlikely that the Browns are going to trade Myles Garrett. It's most likely not going to happen. This is probably a 3% chance. Like I said, this is less than 5% chance that this is going to happen. But I just wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on it, because I saw so many people talk about how, they would never do this trade. They would never do this trade. And I just feel like a lot of people are not seeing that, yeah, trading Myles Garrett to the Eagles is not a good idea. But if you're able to give Myles Garrett to a Chicago or to one of these other mediocre up-and-coming teams that are on the rise, that you could easily see them not being Super Bowl contenders after trading Myles Garrett, and they're willing to give up that amount of draft capital that the Eagles are reportedly willing or discussing to give up for Myles if he's available for a trade. I just don't think that is a bad enough idea, or at least an idea that should be shot down, like, and no discussion should be had. Right. That's just my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Once again, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, new upload coming out with a new video every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And got an announcement coming soon regarding the future of the channel and a couple of other projects that you guys are going to be very happy with. At least I think you guys are going to be very happy with. So, once again, like button, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys all in another video. Take care.